Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Wrestling Podcast About Nothing's first ever debate. Now, for months, a war of words has been raging between the hosts of two popular pro wrestling podcasts. Which brand of wrestling is superior, the WWF or the NWA? The territories or Titan Sports? Or in its simplest terms, the North or the South? The Civil War is long over, but the Uncivil War is just about to begin. Now, we've got two professional wrestlers here, one current, one former, each from different walks of life, and each representing their home turf and their favorite flavor of professional wrestling. First, he's New Hampshire born and raised, and also raised on Vince McMahon's sports entertainment. He is the Wrestling Podcast About Nothing's own Kingpin, Brian Milonas. Welcome.
Thank you. You forgot to mention one of Ring of Honor's top prospects, my man.
I did forget to mention that. I'm introducing you again, even though I introduced you at the beginning of the show, but that's all right. And his opponent for this debate was brought up on Mid-South Wrestling out in Louisiana and looks back fondly on the days of regional wrestling on his podcast, Booking the Territory. Please welcome the Menace, Mike Mills.
Oh, boy. Here we go. Time to have some fun.
What?
I'm ready to kick Milonas in the shins and beat his ass. There's nothing else to say.
This has been a long time coming.
Just a bit. It's been a little bit time coming, yeah. I mean, I hear Milonas every week. You know, he takes his little pot shots. He's got a little sly comment here or there. You know, he likes to talk about the Rockers and how great they were, and you know, he'll mention all this other bullshit about how great the North was and yada 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 and yada yada. It's like, Jesus Christ, man! I can't tell you how many times I puked listening to the Wrestling Podcast About Nothing.
For the record, it was Michael Crockett who loved the Rockers. I was more of a Demolition man, so.
Demolition, another fucking knockoff. But anyway, yeah, let's do this. Let's do this thing. You know, the South is better than the North. That's all there is to it.
All right, we'll find out. We will open the Uncivil War with opening statements, guys. What do you hope to prove here today? And we will start with our guest, Mr. Mike Mills. The floor is yours.
Well, I just want to say one thing. I find it very, fitting, I guess, or maybe even just a little odd. I have to walk into the Lion's Den with two Northerners, for one. I just want to get that on record right now. It's 2-on-1, even though one is a ref who gets blown up at the count of two.
No.
Shout out to you, Brian Fury, for that mention, and thank you for that bit of propaganda I can throw out there. So I think it's fitting that I have to walk into the Lion's Den against the two Northerners, as a Southerner here, and state my case. But, I mean, it's pretty goddamn obvious that the South was great, and we're talking about wrestling, not Confederate South. Everybody out there, I got some hate mail about that. Oh, what are you saying? We need to bring back the rebel flag. Man, no, we're not getting political. This is wrestling. So, no, I want to prove my point that the NWA was great, and, Vince McMahon fell ass backwards into Stone Cold Steve Austin, and the rest is history.
All right, well, Mr. Brian Milonas, your opening statement in this Uncivil War, North versus South.
Well, I just want to say, you notice Mike Mills started off right from the beginning with the excuses on why he's going to lose. Just like Mid-South Wrestling lost, just like the NWA lost, just like Crockett Promotions lost, and just like WCW lost. I will prove what's already been proven over and over and over and over and over again today. The North rules the professional wrestling world.
More vomit.
Wow. All right. Well, strong opening statements from both the gentlemen. And let's go into our questions. I will give you each some pointed questions back and forth. And after I direct the questions to one of you, the other one has a chance for a rebuttal. So I will start with the Wrestling Podcast About Nothing's own Brian Milonas. Brian, your opponent has said that tag team wrestling was something that the South did markedly better than the North ever did. And with the majority of teams honored in the WWE's own Hall of Fame being teams that made their names in territories outside the WWF, including the Freebirds last year and the Rock and Roll Express this year, will you once and for all concede that when it comes to tag team wrestling, the WWE is second place?
I will never concede anything, Michael Crockett. First of all, let's start with your comment about the WWE Hall of Fame. First off, the WWE tends to put WrestleMania in warmer destination sort of spots like Florida or Louisiana. So their Hall of Fame inductions sometimes have a southern flavor to them to appeal to the local crowd. So let's get that out of the way right now. But
Wrong.
no. Come on, nobody who in this world. I don't care if it's the I don't care if it's the Midnight Express, the Rock and Roll Express. Jesus, if they think of anything else but an express down there. But come on, the Hart Foundation, they're playing second fiddle to nobody, huh? Demolition, they're playing second fiddle to nobody.
Jesus
the
Christ.
Rockers, even the Beverly Brothers, the Rougeau Brothers, the Orient Express, the Hardy Boys later on. All of these guys play second fiddle to nobody. The Norse tag team division from the 80s all the way through today, with the New Day breaking records left and right. The North defines tag team wrestling.
Wow. Okay. Now, Mr. Mills, your rebuttal.
Well, I mean, first off, he's full of bullshit. I can't even believe he fixed his lips to talk about the Rockers and what was that knockoff tag team that was the Road Warrior knockoff? Demolition. Look, Vince stole everything from the South. One of them being he brought in Demolition. They were Road Warrior knockoffs, and it's nothing against the guys that were Demolition. They were knockoffs. The Rockers. Oh my God, could you rip another freaking gimmick off more than ripping them off the Rock and Roll Express? I mean, Jesus Christ.
Except for they were great wrestlers.
Then, yeah, I lost my fucking smile. He sure was great. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me started on that. Yeah, I'm gonna get some heat for that one. That's a good one. But no, and then think about Tully and Arn, the Brainbusters. Oh yeah. Oh, I forgot. They were Northern wrestlers. Oh, the Steiners. Oh yeah, they were from the North.
You
too.
just called them the Brainbusters. You called them the Brainbusters.
Oh, well, of course, because that's how your constituents up there know them. I gotta call them by what they know, or else they're gonna go, what the heck they talking about? So yeah, no, screw you. That's bullcrap. The APA, Ron Simmons and JBL. Oh, those guys are Southerners. I hate to break the news to you. Even it frustrates me to no end talking to Northerners about, Vince McMahon has y'all sipping on that Kool-Aid so strong that you are blind. It's like a poison that he puts in that damn freaking WWF Kool-Aid. Come on, man. Tag team wrestling. You should be ashamed of yourself to think about tag team wrestling being better in the North than it was in the South. Shameful. Just disgraceful.
Shame.
Jesus. Next you're going to tell me
Mike.
you were hiding emails about how great they were.
Okay, Mike. Mr. Mills, let's go to question number 2. On your podcast, Booking the Territory, which you can find on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, MikeMills.podbean.com, you talk a lot about the days of the territories before Vince McMahon expanded nationally. Now, your opponent has noted that McMahon's WWF won out in the end, effectively closing down the regional promotions in the South and elsewhere, so that proves that the North is superior. How do you respond to that?
It doesn't prove that the North was superior. It just proves that, he decided to go buy up TV spots and make his mark throughout other areas, in turn shutting the territories down eventually. It did take some time, but, it ended up happening where the territories were shut down. And you know what kills me about Milonas? He's going to take McMahon's side on this, but what he needs to realize is if McMahon wouldn't have done this, he'd probably be working in a successful territory today somewhere. And making good money as a professional wrestler. But no, he's blinded. He's blinded by McMahon. He's blinded by the WWF. He's going to sit there and go, no, that's not it. He took over and he did it all. That's what McMahon wants you to think. The bottom line is cable television was going to destroy the territories anyway. I mean, you can't stop that. That was going to happen. But he helped facilitate that closure of it all. And wasn't wrestling much greater from a territorial system when you could turn on, at least in my area, I could turn on World Class Championship Wrestling. And then that was on a Sunday. And on a Saturday, I could watch Mid-South. And then as I got older, I realized, damn, there was an AWA. And then there was a Florida. And there was a Georgia. And you had all this variety. And it wasn't this homogenated bullshit that we see every single Monday night. No shade on the Monday night talent, because those guys and girls are very, very talented. My point is, it was a lot more variety. It wasn't the same old stuff every single week that we get now. Go ahead, Milonas.
All right, Mr. Kingpin, your rebuttal.
Well, I just want to point out that you can enjoy all of this on Vince McMahon's creation, the WWE Network. You can watch this.
Not true. Alternative fact.
When you would like, because Vince McMahon decided to take over and take wrestling national. But I just want to point out, even in the territory days, you can go back and read biography after biography after biography of wrestlers who performed in the territory days. And to a man, each and every one of them all talked about when they got to, not Spartansburg, not Charlotte, not Atlanta, not New Orleans, but when they got to New York. New York was the number one territory in the territory days. It was a foregone conclusion before Vince McMahon even knew he wanted to take it national that the North was going to win, because even in those days, New York was the place to be. Bruno Sammartino, Andre the Giant, later on Hulk Hogan. The North, New York City, was where it all happened, and it's where the talent from around the world wanted to be. New York City.
You know why I sit here and spew out facts? Brian Milonas said he spews out alternative facts.
Wrong.
Okay. All right, Brian. We'll go to you for
news.
We'll go back to you for question number 3, Brian. Last week on the BDA bonus podcast, last Thursday, you can find that in the Wrestling Podcast About Nothing feed.
You're a son of a bitch.
You said that Dusty Rhodes' introduction to the WWF was the worst of all such introductions in the history of the promotion, based mostly on how he was portrayed after years of being a championship caliber athlete in the NWA. Now, Brian, how can you sing the praises of the WWF when they mishandled an obvious star so badly?
Oh, he twisted. He got your ass.
That's okay. Well, my only defense of this is, hey, Babe Ruth didn't hit a home run every single time he got up to the plate, man. Like, sometimes you do swing and miss. But here's the thing about Dusty Rhodes. One, this was the tail end of his career, his in-ring career, when he was with the WWF. And still to this day, for as badly as they handled his entrance into the WWF, and for all the great matches that he did have in the Southern Territories, first of all, did Dusty Rhodes not start in Boston? I just want to ask. Is that right? Am I stating Dusty Rhodes' history correctly? He started in the North.
Here he goes with the alternative facts.
But the things that still live iconic today, for as badly as his entry into the WWF was handled, when people who know Dusty Rhodes wanted to honor him when he passed away, they wore the polka dots. That's right, the polka dots he made famous in the WWF, and also his music in the WWF is iconic. So, even in a situation where maybe they didn't hit a home run, they still hit at least a pretty solid double, because two of the lasting images and memories of Dusty Rhodes are the polka dots and the Common Man music from his run in WWF.
You're stuck on stupid. He's stuck on stupid right now. Okay, so not even 4 days ago he buried it, and now he's talking about how great it is. I mean, that's just like a goddamn politician if I've ever heard one. But it's just going back on your words. I mean, come on, man. Look, here's the thing. I don't think it was a rib. I listened to the Bruce Pritchard show. I think Bruce. I think Bruce is, I got to take Bruce for his word. And, I mean, he puts out a quality show each and every week. So, yeah, I don't think it was a rib. There's no way that was a rib. I think that's, that was Vince. I mean, look what Vince did. Vince would put colorful crap on everybody. He made a white man from Africa. I mean, he turned a freaking one-man gang into an African dream, Akeem. So, if he can do that to freaking the one-man gang, why can't he put Dusty in polka dots? That's just what he did. I mean, one-man gang said it. Vince McMahon told him, hey, one man gang is not colorful enough for the WWF. So I mean, I look at the same thing with Dusty. It's like, man, he just made Dusty more colorful, so to say, with the polka dots and stuff. And that's a credit to Dusty because he was so over in the NWA and they've been able to get anything over. It wasn't a rib, but he still got it over. Now, as far as Dusty and the NWA, look, they treated him right down there. He world champion a few times. This is not even a discussion. Why are we even talking about Dusty and the NWA versus the WWF when your own person here, Crockett, Brian Milonas, said 4 days ago, oh, yeah, that was terrible, that what they did him. Now
I'll tell you why we're talking about it, because Crockett's trying to stack the deck against me. That's why.
Oh, now the excuses are coming out on your side, Brian.
Referees don't stack decks against you. We're both heels here, so it doesn't work that way.
Right down the middle, guys. Right down the middle. All right. On to the next question for you, Mike Mills. Now, in the 80s, the Pro Wrestling Magazine's hottest debate was always, who is the better world champion, Hulk Hogan or Ric Flair? Now, Hulk Hogan was, and for some people probably still is, the face of professional wrestling. He made huge money for the WWF for a very long time. It's no debate that Flair is the better wrestler, but can you make a case that Flair was a better representative of his territory than Hogan?
No doubt he was. I mean, Flair, 7 days a week, twice on Sunday, defended that belt everywhere against everyone. Another thing Flair didn't have a problem doing is Flair didn't have a problem putting people over, unlike, what you gonna do, brother? Because, he has Mr. Creative Control, as we've come to find out over the years. Look, I can't knock Hogan. Obviously, he put money in Vince's pocket and his own pockets all alone. But to compare these two, whether it's wrestling ability or draw, I just can't do it. And then here's the thing about Hogan and Flair that always will get me. Always will get me. Why in the flying fuck did, when the WWF finally got Flair, we didn't get a Flair and Hogan matchup on a major pay-per-view? Explain that to me. They screwed that up so bad, and it makes no sense to me. None. But you want me to say, oh, WWF, yeah, they know what they're doing. We had to wait till a few years after, once they were both kind of past it all and past their prime. We finally got it in WCW, but by that point, it was messed up because of how the WWF mishandled it.
And it did good business in WCW, right?
I mean, that's a whole nother topic. The mismanagement of WCW. If you listen to Tony Schiavone these days and what he's got to say about that, that's a whole nother issue. I'm not saying it did bad business, but my point is WCW had issues, and that's more of the fact of why we're sitting here and there's only one quote-unquote big promotion now. No disrespect to ROH, TNA, because I'm big fans of definitely ROH and TNA. But the mismanagement, if you listen to Tony Schiavone these days and some of the people that were in the office then, it was not a good time as we got early 90s for sure, but definitely later 90s and early 2000s. But it did good business. But my point is, WWF had a chance at it first, and they blew that shit.
All right, Mr. Milonas, Hogan versus Flair.
There is no debate when it comes to Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair.
This is the number one Hulkamaniac speaking.
Once again, no disrespect to these wonderful cities in the South, but while Ric Flair was maybe selling out Spartansburg and Charlotte and Atlanta, Hulk Hogan was selling out New York and Boston and Philadelphia and all over the world. Hulk Hogan is the number one draw in the history of professional wrestling. He took professional wrestling from a dark and seedy place to a national spotlight. Hulk Hogan did that, not Ric Flair. Hulk Hogan was on the cover of Sports Illustrated, not Ric Flair. And to show you the power of the North, to this day, when people even think of Ric Flair, they associate him with WWE.
That's bullcrap.
That is a fact, my man.
That is not a fact.
That is
people,
a fact.
Define
That run to his retirement probably was the run that Ric Flair probably made the most money in his career. That WrestleMania payoff was probably the biggest payoff Ric Flair ever had in his career. And to this day, When people think of Ric Flair, I guarantee you they say the test here isn't the hardcore wrestling fan. The test is the casual people who kind of watch wrestling or kind of know about wrestling, and they're going to associate Ric Flair with WWE/WWF. Hulk Hogan probably drew more money in a year than Ric Flair would draw in 5. I think Flair was afraid to come to the North. Because he knew he would be overshadowed by the number 1 professional wrestler in the history of this business, Hulk Hogan. If you were alive for this is like watching Babe Ruth in his prime, Michael Jordan in his prime, Wayne Gretzky in his prime. I'm going to leave out football. We're not going to discuss football on this podcast. But watching Hulk Hogan was watching the GOAT, the greatest of all time.
Oh, boy.
Once again, he spews out alternative facts and stuff he's made up in his head. It's a shit show. Proceed, Crockett.
I think you guys have both made some strong points. This is going well. All right.
Here we go. Now I'm in the Lions Den. We got the Northerners. We got the Northerners ganging up on me.
No. You both made good points. All right. Question 5 is for Mr. Brian Milonas.
This ought to be good.
My last question regarding Dusty Rhodes and the adjustments made to his character once he came to the WWF. A lot has been made over the years about the cartoonish, outlandish, and sometimes offensive gimmicks that wrestlers have been asked to portray up north, such as Repo Man, Isaac Yankem DDS, and yes, Saba Simba. You often say that the object of promoting wrestling is to make money. Surely they didn't think they could make money from these characters. Does a promotion that knowingly invests in these silly, unmarketable gimmicks, can it really be the best promotion?
Well, I mean, let's just talk for a second here, because I think they both had their fair share of garbage like this. I mean, before they went on to be main event level stars in WWF, let's talk about Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. What were they in WCW, but a couple of silly gimmicks? Oz and was it Vinny Vegas was another Kevin Nash character. The Diamond Stud. Let's talk about the Yeti. How about the Yeti? I am looking at a list here, but are these profitable gimmicks? I think they both had their share of garbage gimmicks. But again, these guys were the accoutrement, so to speak. They weren't the main event level guys. None of these characters were meant to be main event level guys. They were meant to be the undercard, the entertainment, the something for everybody type of things. And Dusty, you brought up Dusty Rhodes again, but Dusty Rhodes wasn't a gimmick. They brought him in with vignettes, but they didn't make him perform, be some sort of gimmick that he wasn't. And admitted there were some terrible gimmicks in the World Wrestling Federation in the early 90s, but there were just as many in WCW/the NWA during this time period as well. I think it was more of a reflection of the era of professional wrestling and the era of entertainment in the world at this time, more so than just the wrestling business itself. I think this one, if you want, I'll even give a nod to the South here. This one's a draw to me when it comes to bad gimmicks.
So wait, you're giving it a nod, but you're saying it's a draw?
That's a win for the South, man.
Oh, no. All right, Mike Mills, bad gimmicks. Go.
Repo Man, Bastion Booger, the Ringmaster. Yes, the Ringmaster. They took a guy who's the greatest talker ever in professional wrestling from the South and took the mic out of his hand and told him that he couldn't talk, and Ted DiBiase would do the talking for him. Kerwin White, Max Moon, Duke Droese, Papa Shango, a Hall of Famer as the Godfather.
Don't you speak bad about Papa Shango. That's where I draw the line, man. That's where I draw the line.
I don't have nothing against Papa Shango. I don't have nothing against him. It's just that gimmick. Mantor, Isaac Yankem, T.L. Hopper, the Goon, the Boogeyman, the Gobbly fucking Gooper. What the shit is this? This is what you call pro wrestling? That's like a freaking bad costume party. I mean, you can't even tell, I'll give a nod to the South. Yeah, no! You need to be looking at that going, God damn, I feel ashamed to see this crap was on actually a product that I ever thought of as being great.
And more people saw these guys than probably saw Ric Flair versus Ricky Steamboat, my man.
Dude. He's a politician, Crockett. I mean, he's just talking. He doesn't even care. He doesn't base anything in facts. He bases it in Milonas isms in his head.
Wrong.
Jesus.
All right. Okay.
He's gonna make me go to church tomorrow.
All right. The next question, the final question that I have here, is for Mr. Mike Mills of Booking the Territory Pro Wrestling Podcast. All right, Mike. Though many stars emerged through the Monday Night Wars on both sides, Stone Cold Steve Austin's star probably shined the brightest. Your opponent has contended that through contributions of talent like this and through superior storytelling, WCW faltered and failed, leading to a wrestling monopoly with the WWE. What do you have to say to this?
Well, a couple things. One, I will go back to Milonas' good friend and yours, Brian Fury, when he mentions that the Attitude Era is overrated. He's right.
Brian Fury is also a well-documented contrarian who always goes against the grain. So,
oh no,
you don't have a leg to stand on there.
So now you're taking shots at Fury when he's not here to defend himself.
It's not a shot; it's a fact. And anybody who knows Brian Fury knows this and will back me up.
Well, you know what? He's been on my show a few times, and I've never had an issue with him, unlike you. Now, how's that sound? But so anyway, I will take Fury's right. I mean, it was overrated. Don't get me wrong. You had a mega star with Stone Cold Steve Austin, and it carried things through, and yes, they won the war, so to say. But I want to remind you, it was WCW that first said to themselves, hey, we're going to put on good matches and not this jobber stuff every single week where you know who's going to win. We're going to put on quality matches each and every Monday live. We're gonna do it live, and we're gonna make a mark that way. Now the problem is, yeah, it did set an example that's kind of hard to live up to over the years. I mean, here we are 20 years later. You can't really. It's hard to do every single Monday, but they find a way to do it. But it will hurt the ratings eventually because you're giving away a lot of times you're giving away pay-per-view matches for free. But it was WCW that took that idea and made it into something in which the WWF at the time then had to respond to. So when you're talking about the Monday Night Wars, I want you to keep that into perspective.
All right. Brian Milonas, the Monday Night Wars.
What can be said that hasn't been said about the Monday Night Wars? WCW did have a very successful stretch in their company's history, beating WWE. Was 86 straight weeks? Is that the mark?
Something in there.
Here comes the butt. Here comes the butt.
But I just want to point out that the most successful storyline in the history of that company was pretending that a group of invaders from the north were coming in and taking over, literally turning their southern fan base on their southern favorites. People loved the NWO, and the entire premise of the NWO was that they came from this bigger, better promotion up north to come and make WCW better and take it over. They even went and said, was it Scott Hall? You know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here. Insinuating that he is there as an agent of the World Wrestling Federation. That's right, even Eric Bischoff and WCW knew that we're going to sell a hell of a lot more pay-per-views and t-shirts and merchandise, pretending that we have a bunch of wrestlers who are affiliated with the WWF. And why did they sign these guys, Mike Mills? Because they were huge megastars made in the North, made in New York City. Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Ted DiBiase. All of these guys came from the North and came in to pop the ratings for WCW because they were established stars that people knew, and they knew that the fans in the North would want to still see their beloved stars of yesteryear. Roddy Piper, the list goes on and on and on. Again, just to show you how dominant WWF has been and how dominant the North has been during the Monday Night Wars, the most successful storyline in the company's history was telling you that WCW was inferior to the North.
You realize half the people you just named are from the South?
But we're talking about where
right?
these guys made their names, Mike Bill, not where you were born.
No, it just goes to show you that not. Don't even get me started. Hogan ain't even from the North. And he didn't make his name. He didn't make his name in the WWF. Let's get that shit straight. Yeah, Vince just pillaged him, took him away from the AWA, like he did all that other great AWA talent.
Because guys wanted to go to New York because that's where the money was. That's where the fame was. That's where you became a mega star
so basically
in New York
he stole.
City.
Ted DiBiase, don't get me started where he was from. Don't even get me started while you want to talk about how great Ted DiBiase was.
Do people remember Ted DiBiase from his run in Mid-South Wrestling, or do they remember the $1 Million Man?
Which was stupid, but whatever. I mean, you're going to believe what you don't want to believe anyway. You know what, Milonas? Name me one person besides Dwayne The Rock Johnson that Vince McMahon made was like his creation.
John Cena.
Name me one.
Kurt Angle. Just name two.
You're in the modern era. Prior to 2001. When, of course, he made names after 2001. He owned every fucking thing. He had to make names at that point.
Andre the Giant was most associated with New York.
Oh,
was Andre the Giant not associated with the New York territory? Bruno Sammartino. Bruno Sammartino rarely ventured outside of the New York territory.
Okay. All right. So again, everybody, Stone Cold Steve Austin, the man who made him the most money, Vince knew what he wanted to do with him from the get-go. That's why he made him the ringmaster and took the mic from his hand. I want to hear this. I want to hear. Go ahead. Respond. Bushwhackers. He took a savage tag team.
WCW didn't know what to do with Stone Cold Steve Austin either. They let him walk. They fired him because he was hurt, and they never pushed him beyond mid-card status. They put him in a tag team with Brian Pillman, which turned out to be great, but they didn't have big plans for those guys. They just threw him in a tag team because they didn't know what else to do with them.
You'll never get me to I will never sit there and tell you that WCW, once the corporate suits took over, knew what they were doing. Because there's one thing that we will both agree on, hopefully, and it's that corporate suits in professional wrestling is not a match made in heaven and should not exist. And that's why the WWE these days doesn't draw the way it used to on Monday nights. Let's get that straight now. So you had the WCW had that problem. They were constantly battling corporate America. And I'm sorry, y'all, but you all know the shit that goes on in wrestling locker rooms. Wrestling is not made for corporate America. It ain't made for it. I don't care which way you try to slice it. Shareholders in professional wrestling are not a match made in heaven, no matter what the WWE wants to tell you. I don't care. So we can thank bad management as far as the corporation goes on some of the things we saw with WCW. We can't sit there and say it was that, they didn't have good wrestlers and it was bad wrestling and all of a sudden the North is so much better because they, quote unquote, won the war. They won the war, then why are they running wrestling to this day?
It's all subjective, Mike Mills. It's all subjective.
Okay. I have been very lenient in this debate, much like I was lenient in the Brian Fury's final match.
Well, to be fair, you've probably been completely uncomfortable because there's two grown men putting some bass in their voice with one another. So I'm sure you've been cowering under your desk there, Mike Crockett.
No, I've been enjoying this. It's been fantastic. All right, well, we should probably wrap this up. Closing statements. This is your final opportunity to sway the public, to let people know why you are in the right, and you can address anything that I didn't address through my questions right here through your closing statements. And we will start with Mr. Kingpin, Brian Milonas.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't have to even try all that hard to make much of a case because the proof is in the pudding. To the victor go the spoils, and the winners get to rewrite history as they see fit. But from the days of the territories when everybody strived to want to get to New York City because that's where big stars were made, they wanted to wrestle in Madison Square Garden because that was the mecca of professional wrestling, even in the territory days. Through the 80s, the boom period, the first boom period of professional wrestling, led again by New York, the New York promotion, World Wrestling Federation with Hulk Hogan at the helm. Through the second boom period in professional wrestling, the Attitude Era, which was soundly won by the North again and put the South out of business completely, to today, the global phenomenon that is World Wrestling Entertainment, all started in the North, in New York City. Humble beginnings in New York City to a worldwide iconic brand today. Oh, boy. I didn't have to work very hard. To be fair, Mike Mills had to work a hell of a lot harder to try to prove his case in Southern wrestling being better than Northern wrestling. Again, the winners get to rewrite history as they see fit. And to this day, the North will continue to write the history of professional wrestling because guess what? We won just like the Kingpin, Brian Milonas, won today.
All right, Mike Mills, you get the final say.
Well, he's right about that because in any war, when the winner does write the history, just look at American history and the bookers write the history books. I mean, there's no other way to say it. So he is right in that respect. But I kind of fell asleep during that because it was just a bunch of yada, 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 same old crap. Look, I will never sit there and say that WCW, the South, was managed correctly. Once corporations took over, it became an issue. I mean, you can't, like I said, corporate America is not made for professional wrestling. I know the WWE, is a publicly traded company now, but there's a reason for many, many years wrestling was not publicly traded, and I will stick by that forever. It's sad because Milonas, he's by the fact that he doesn't want to credit the South for its accomplishments in professional wrestling, he's missing out on some great history and some great stuff that went on in professional wrestling. And that's the terrible part of this debate, that he doesn't want to wake up and realize that his stars and his favorite people, and I mean, I was reminded by T-Hawk 94 this week that, Milonas' favorite professional wrestler growing up, Hulk Hogan, he's not a Northerner. Milonas, in his mind, has made himself believe that Hogan is a WWF creation when he's really not. He's really not. And that's what's sad about this, is the blind. It's like Milonas is blind whenever he thinks about the North and how great it was. It wasn't great. It's still not great. No shade at the current WWE talent. Kofi Kingston, I'm a big fan. Sasha Banks, I'm a big fan. I just got to make that statement. If any WWE talents do hear this is not me bashing you all. It's me bashing the way history is being written in professional wrestling more than anything. That's actually the crux of this argument, Crockett. That's the big thing that gets on my nerves. Is we are allowing one organization to write the history that professional wrestling is, and it's not that. It's a jaded and one view of history. It's not what the actual history of professional wrestling is. And in my eyes, the South, as far as wrestling goes, will always be greater than the North, because the North did nothing but steal everything from the South.
All right. That is your Uncivil War North versus South debate. It is, I mean, I'd like to say that I could call this thing one way or the other, but it is far too close to call. So I want to ask.
I'm
riding
shocked.
the fence, Mike Crockett, as usual.
I mean, if there's one thing me and Milonas can agree on, we're shocked by that. We are shocked that you can't pick a side. I'm so surprised.
Well, you would accuse me of bias if I went the way of Brian Milonas, and Milonas would accuse me of being a dink if I went your way, Mike Mills.
I don't have to accuse you of being a dink. You are a dink.
All right, so what I'm going to do is we're going to do a hashtag on Twitter, hashtag Uncivil War. Use that hashtag on Twitter and give us your thoughts. Give us your winner of the great debate, the Uncivil War, North versus South. Is it the Menace, Mike Mills? Is it the Kingpin, Brian Milonas? Let us know on Twitter who won the Uncivil War. This has been great to hear from you guys. It's been great arguments both ways. A really fun show. And Mike Mills, before you go, I want to give you a chance to talk about all your stuff that you have going on.
Well, we're going to make an announcement on this Thursday's show. When I say this Thursday, what the heck is today's date? This drops on the 20th, right, Crockett?
Monday the 20th, yes.
All right, so this Thursday's show, the 23rd, I'll give you all a little heads up. We're going to make an announcement about some of the things that we're going to start doing with the show going forward. But I will tell you this, to all the Southern wrestling lovers out there, it's gonna be something Southern wrestling related. We do the top fives every week, where we do like the top 5 guys from the 1990s, or top 5 talents from the 2000s, or top 5s from the 80s, or top heels from the 80s. You know the drill, Crockett. We do all these top 5s. Actually, this week we're doing a top five announcers of all time.
Cool.
We do top 5s every single week. Yeah, there's going to be none of that Northern shit in this, Milonas, just so you know. Actually, I won't say that. That's not true.
Jim Ross is from the North, right?
Yeah, he's from the North. There you go. I'm glad you brought that up. Jim Ross, he's a Northern guy, right? Yeah, sure. But no, seriously, we do our weekly top 5s. But we're making an announcement about something that we're going to do with the show going forward related to Southern wrestling. And so just keep that in mind. That'll be on the Thursday, February the 23rd, 2016 show. If you want to know how to find the show, we're everywhere that you can get podcasts from, whether it's iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, you name it. What's that? FM Player. Everywhere you can, Podcast Addict. If you just search Booking the Territory, you can find the show. And, I'm sitting here talking and arguing about the South versus the North, but I'm not going to sit there and say we never discuss anything Northern related. I mean, there are people that make our top fives from the North, unlike what Brian Milonas would do if he would do a top five. So just keep that in mind. So we do talk some Northern stuff.
I do want to mention that Brian Milonas, I don't know if you heard this episode of Booking the Territory, but they did top 5 finishers. And I think Mike Mills' number 1 was the super kick.
Yes.
And it was the super kick by Chris Adams, not the super kick by Shawn Michaels.
Thank you, Crockett, because it's true. Don't laugh. Don't laugh. Don't fuck.
Yeah, when you say super kick,
that's
that's what people think about. They think about Chris. No disrespect to Chris Adams, who was a fantastic wrestler, but that's what they think about. They think about Chris Adams when you say super kick. Well, now they probably think about the Young Bucks when you say super kick now. But
Chris Adams was an intense son of a gun in the ring, and I'll just say that that dude was intense. But
yeah, you wrestled him, right?
One time. Yes, one time.
Did you lose to the super kick?
Yes, I lost to the super kick, but more than anything, I just remember, I won't say his name, but he told me before the match, he goes, he's going to give it to you. You better make sure you give it back. I'm like, okay. And I was young too, Milona, so you can imagine first year in the business and getting to mix it up with Chris Adams, who to me at that point, you got to remember, this is like 96, 97. He's a legend to me because I grew up watching that dude world class. You're like, oh, shit. So, yeah, I'm kind of starstruck in there with him. And rest in peace, Chris Adams, man. He was cool, but, yeah, he was intense. He was very
remember
intense.
But do you remember the point, Mike Mills, where you get past that shit of worrying about if somebody's lacing into you, who they are or who they were? Because I wrestled Tatanka, and he told me to go hard, but he was lacing into me, and then I just said, the hell with that, and I just gave it right back to him. You get past that point of like, oh, I don't want to hit him too hard because he's a legend, then they kick the shit out of you. Well, you give it to me, you're getting it right back.
they lay a few into you, like, you know what? No, screw this shit. This ain't happening on my watch. And then Chris probably, Chris was a judo champion, so he could have whooped my ass if he really wanted to. But not being a kid, whatever. It still was. You're right. You get past it real quick. You're like, I gotta defend myself. Shit. No. So we do go back to it, Crockett. We do our top fives each and every week, and we'll be making an announcement about some Southern wrestling stuff we'll be tackling soon on the show. And then. So that's the Thursday show, and again, just search Booking the Territory wherever you get your podcast from. You can find it. If you want to listen online, like you're at your computer, you can just go to mikemills.podbean.com and go there, and all of our shows are there. But we've had some of the legendary people on the show, like the One Man Gang for one. He talked about his Akeem days, he even talked about his ECW days. So you can go back in the archives and find that. I've had on Sam Houston from the NWA. Eric Young was a guest at one point in time. Some of your friends have been on, like Donovan Dijak. Who else? Brian Fury. Warbeard Hansen.
Mike Crockett.
Mike Crockett was a guest at one point in time. That's true. It was the first time he was ever a guest on another show. Beer City Bruiser was on a few years back. So you can go back. All the old shows are available in the archives. There's probably 120 episodes at this point in time, with about 25 of them at this point being Smoky Mountain Wrasslin, Brian Milonas, a Southern wrestling promotion, Jim Cornette's creation. And I got to tell you, if Crockett, I'll let you kind of weigh in because I think you've listened to some of them. The Smoky Mountain shows are completely dedicated to Smoky Mountain. They drop every single Sunday night at 6 p.m. Central Time. Same place, mikemills.podbean.com, and just search Booking the Territory wherever you get your podcast from. But it's all Smoky Mountain, and what I like about it is it's Jim Cornette and all of his promos and stuff that probably didn't get seen by a lot of people because it was such a regional promotion in the early and mid 90s that you'll go back and you'll be like, man, this is some really, really good and interesting stuff. And the thing about Smoky Mountain is everybody came through Smoky Mountain. Like, and when I say everybody, I mean The Undertaker even had matches in Smoky Mountain. Shawn Michaels had a match in Smoky Mountain. Buddy Landell was there. I mean, Ric Flair wasn't there, but Buddy Landell was there. The Heavenly Bodies. Kane came through Smoky Mountain at some point. Kevin Sullivan. When I say the Heavenly Bodies,
did Vince McMahon himself not?
Actually, he was on Smoky Mountain television at one point because Cornette worked with the WWF during that point. I mean, the Rock and Roll Express fought for the Smoky Mountain Tag Team titles on a WWF pay-per-view against the Heavenly Bodies.
I was there.
You were there.
It was in Boston.
Yeah.
It was in Boston.
So when I mention all these things, it's interesting because they were a Southern wrestling promotion, and if you're listening to this, we haven't even got real deep into it yet. We're only 25 episodes in as of this recording of that, and it's a little over a 3-year run, but so many things happened in Smoky Mountain. Like at one point they worked with WCW, and then later on they worked with WWF. But you had so many talents from not only the territories but WWF that actually came through there. Like a lot of people think of Dr. Tom Pritchard. Dr. Tom was a member of the Heavenly Bodies. He was also Candido's tag team in the Body Donnas. What was his name? Crockett, you'll remember.
Zip.
In the Body Donnas.
Zip?
Zip, yeah.
Zip. I couldn't remember. Yeah, and like when you see him, you're like, wow, there's Dr. Tom. But yeah, so Sonny was in Smoky Mountain. So there you go. I mean, T.L. Hopper, Vince McMahon taking a dump on him, was actually an outstanding heel in Smoky Mountain Wrestling as the Dirty White Boy. Primetime Brian Lee. I'm sure WWF and WWE fans remember him when he came to the WWF.
That's the fake Undertaker.
The fake Undertaker. So it's like a crazy journey. The Steiners. I mean, it's almost like, I say it all the time, but it's almost like everyone you can think of in pro wrestling, even if you were a Northern wrestling fan, came through Smoky Mountain at one point. So it's a fun little journey that we're doing, and we cover Smoky Mountain each and every week on Sunday nights. So it'll be up. And again, MikeMills.podbean.com for all the shows, and wherever you get your podcast from, Booking the Territory. We're on Twitter at BTT_podcast. I'm at Mike504Saints. And I don't know, Crockett, you've listened to a bunch of the shows. Are we kind of unique? I mean, we do a lot of cursing, obviously. You can tell from I'm a foul-mouthed son of a bitch.
Definitely. And you have a great rapport with your guys there, Doc Turner and Hardbody Harper. So, it is a great conversation. Like you said, a little profane, but I enjoy that. And, yeah, it's really something that our fans should listen to.
I appreciate that, man. And I send, each and every week I do send listeners your way and tell them that they need to listen to the Wrestling Podcast About Nothing. And it's funny because my listeners go at Milonas.
Yeah, so you send them to harass me on Twitter.
I never said it one time. I've never said anything to attack you. I've made mention about your Northern bias and the bullshit that you believe the North is versus the South. And out of nowhere, I'm like, damn, I'm getting tagged in all these Twitter messages. They are going at you big time, talking about your bias, man. I mean, and then we got one of them. He says, "Did y'all see that Mullen Morton's tweet?"
Which one?
Yeah, well, that's true. He says that. Didn't he say something about after the North versus the South, he was going to crack open an 8-ball and some beer?
Yes.
So hopefully Mullen Morton is not getting high right now as he listens to this. But anyway, he goes at you hard. There's a few of them out there that are like, they're on Milonas like flies on dog doo-doo, and it's hilarious.
Well, yes. So make sure you use the hashtag Uncivil War and leave your vote. Who won the North versus South debate? Mike Mills, as always, great to have you here on the Wrestling Podcast About Nothing. First time on the NAI Network for you, but a great appearance. A great debate with the Kingpin.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and I'm glad this is on the NAI Network. I wanted to say I'm a fan of a few of the shows on the NAI Network, and I guess it's the flagship show that Bill and Jason and Liam do on the main feed, I should say. So I've been listening to them for a while now, and they do some good stuff. They do a good job. I will say this, because we don't cover the current product really that much anymore. I mean, we do a little, but not like we used to. I always say that Jason and them, they do a good job with the current product. They really do, and I got to give them credit. They do very good production, and they really do some good work. Why they would want to bring Milonas aboard, I have no clue. Crockett, I understand about you, but Milonas aboard, that's a whole nother story. So Bill Neville, Liam, Jason, good job, man. Keep up the good work.
Well, Mike Mills, in true professional, because I am a professional. I am a true professional. I just want to thank you for coming on and doing the JOB, my friend.
You mean you looked up at the lights?
No shame, Mike Mills, in coming on and getting your shoulders counted to the mat, my friend.
If you say so. I mean,
I'm taking home the winner's share of the purse in this one.
Well, let me say this. In the famous words of Bobby Blaze, former Smoky Mountain Wrestling heavyweight champion and someone who was also in World Class Championship Wrestling, or World Class Championship Wrestling, WCW, I should say, pin me, pay me, boss.
Your check's in the mail, sir.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, Mike.
No problem.